Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hop Podcast. Today I have some bonus content for you guys, and the bonus content we'll be covering today will be my own personal list of the biggest sports trades that have transpired in North American sports history. So I have a mix of trades that have transpired within the NFL, the NBA, MLB. This is my own personal top 5 list of the biggest North American sports trades in sports history. So not ranking them in particular order, but one on my list would be the Luka Doncic trade that just sent Luka Doncic over to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I know it's only been a few weeks since this trade has happened, but I really feel like that Luka Doncic trade is one of the biggest trades in North American sports history. And I cannot remember a trade, whether it's the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, that erupted the landscape of not only that particular sport, but the entire landscape in the sports world, because Luka Doncic being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, hell, being traded at this particular point of his young NBA career was a big deal in the sports world. Luka Doncic is 25 years of age. He hasn't even scratched the surface yet of what his true prime could truly be in the NBA. He just averaged 34 points per game last year and brought the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals last year. They just fell a few games short of making the winning an NBA title. And then you fast forward 68 months later, and Luka Doncic is not even a part of the Dallas Mavericks organization. And he was traded without fair warning. That's how crazy that was. We're talking about Luka Doncic, that if he eventually won the titles for the Dallas Mavericks and won an MVP or so, he would have had a statue outside of that arena next to Dirk Nowitzki, one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. So that's how dynamic and that's how big that trade is, because now Luka Doncic, being at 25 years of age, the Lakers possibly had the chance to make him the next best Los Angeles Laker in the Lakers' history, because of how young he is and the fact that he could be a generational talent. He could go down as one of the greatest Lakers of all time with Kareem, Shaq, Kobe, Magic. The possibilities are there, and the fact that Anthony Davis is in Anthony Davis's own right is a generational talent himself, which was shipped out to the Dallas Mavericks after helping the Lakers win an NBA title a few years ago during the bubble. So that trade right there has to go down as one of the biggest trades in North American sports history. That makes my list. Now, this one we're going to pivot over to the NFL. This trade in 1989, the Herschel Walker trade, being traded from the Dallas Cowboys and being shipped out to Minnesota to the Minnesota Vikings, is one of the biggest trades, in my opinion, in North American sports history. Because what happened here is, this was one of the craziest trades in NFL history, when the Cowboys traded their star running back in Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings in 1989. Now, at the time, the Dallas Cowboys were down in the dumps. They were rebuilding. I believe they were 1-15 at the time, and the Vikings were on their quest to winning their first Super Bowl trophy, and they still haven't done that in their franchise's history. But at the time, they were contenders and knocking on the door to win a Super Bowl. So what the Vikings did was trade for running back Herschel Walker, and the Cowboys traded Herschel Walker to the Vikings in exchange for role players and mid-round draft picks. Now, there was a scenario in this trade clause that if the Dallas Cowboys cut every player that was a part of this trade, they would get higher draft capital from the Minnesota Vikings. Well, Jimmy Johnson rolled the dice here and cut all of those average role players that were part of this trade to get higher draft picks. Then those draft picks ended up being that trade ended up being the reason why the Dallas Cowboys were a dynasty in the 1990s, because that opened the door for them to win multiple Super Bowls, 2 to 3 Super Bowls, and have great draft selections. And that draft, one of the draft selections was Emmitt Smith, one of the greatest running backs in NFL history, and the league's NFL all-time rushing leader at the running back position. So that trade right there was a robbery that turned out to be the greatest thing for the Dallas Cowboys franchise. And meanwhile, for the Minnesota Vikings, the Herschel Walker trade didn't even work out, because he was gone from the team within the next 2 to 3 years. So the Cowboys, they basically struck gold here. Jimmy Johnson rolled the dice. We won 3 Super Bowls, that being highlighted with golden years of Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. Wow. That you will never see a trade like that happen with a clause like that and the significant circumstances that can happen in NFL history ever again. So that has to be one of the biggest trades in North American sports history. Now, this trade, well, it wasn't a trade, but it was a transaction, and I count it as a trade, so I'm going to add it to the list. The New York Yankees buying Babe Ruth the day after Christmas in 1919. So the craziest thing about this is back in 1918, well over 100 years ago, Babe Ruth, one of the greatest MLB players of all time, won his third world title with the Boston Red Sox at 23 years of age. He was a two-way player, being a pitcher and an outfielder, being a significant role, playing a significant role for the Red Sox and their success. In 1919, he hit over 20 home runs, which led the league and the MLB at the time, and he demanded more money for the Red Sox. He either wanted more money from the Red Sox or he was going to retire and try out the sport of boxing at the time. So the craziest thing was the Red Sox owner at the time did not like the fact that Babe Ruth was demanding this type of money, wanting more money for his production on the field. So the Red Sox owner then sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees for a total of $100,000. Babe Ruth, the rest was history, because Babe Ruth went on to become one of the greatest of all time. He helped the New York Yankees win 4 World Series titles, and basically that was a generational curse that happened after the Red Sox made this transition, because we know the big rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox. It was a total of 86 years until the Boston Red Sox held another world title in Boston. That's how significant this trade was, because the Babe Ruth went on to win even more world titles with the Yankees than he did with the Red Sox. And then the Red Sox had to wait nearly 100 years to get their hands on another World Series trophy. But that right there is significant in history, because if this transition didn't happen, would the Yankees be one of the most historic, the most historic franchise in MLB history? And the Red Sox are one of the most historic franchises as well. But that transition right there changed the game of baseball forever, and even made the rivalry even bigger between the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox today. So the next trade I have, we're going to pivot back to the NBA, and that's Kevin Garnett being traded to the Boston Celtics in 2007. Now, when you talk about Kevin Garnett is one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. Kevin Garnett is obviously the greatest Minnesota Timberwolves player in their respective franchises' history. But when Kevin Garnett was there, when his time with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they had their ups and their downs. With his time, his first 7 playoff appearances, they lost 7 straight first round playoff appearances, and then they finally got over the hump, went to the Western Conference Finals once upon a time ago. But then after Kevin Garnett got the Timberwolves to that point, they went 3 straight years without making the NBA playoffs out in the Western Conference. So it got to the point where the Minnesota Timberwolves were ready to pull the plug, they were ready to rebuild, and they traded their best player, Kevin Garnett, to the Boston Celtics. There was a lot of players that were involved in this trade. Al Jefferson jumps to my mind. There were several others that were included, but this formed the big 3 in Boston of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. They were the bullies on the block in the Eastern Conference for a lot of years, until the big 3 in Miami was built of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. That big 3 was built because they could not individually get past the big 3 of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. And the fact that they played so well together with Doc Rivers coaching and Rajon Rondo there as well, Kevin Garnett and the Celtics went on to win the NBA Finals his first year being with the Celtics after being traded there. So that has to go down as one of the biggest trades in NBA history, because you had Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen playing together, and the fact that they only won 1 NBA title together is crazy. Now, yes, they lost the second time around to the Lakers in the NBA Finals playing against Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol, but they should have won more titles together. So I still think that was significant for the Boston Celtics, and in terms of where they are as they lead the league now, and most NBA titles won. But that was a big home run hit for them in 2008, getting Kevin Garnett, one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. Now, the final trade on my list would be Shaq being traded to the Miami Heat in 2004. Now, why I put this trade on my list is due to the fact that Shaq and Kobe just came off of a three-peat with the Los Angeles Lakers. They won it from the years of 2000, 2001, 2002. And that is actually the final three-peat in North American sports history. There has not been a three-peat in the NFL, ever in the NFL. There's not been an NBA three-peat since then. As great and significant teams there have been, never seen a three-peat since then. Never seen a three-peat in the NHL, and never seen a three-peat in the MLB. That was the final three-peat in North American sports history. And the fact that they were on their way to winning 4 straight NBA titles, they got derailed by the Pistons in 2004, and that summer they traded Shaq out of LA, shipped him out of LA, and sent him to South Beach to play with the Miami Heat. And the fact that they did this was bizarre and crazy because we all know that Shaq and Kobe is one of the greatest duos in NBA history. And the fact that they won 3 straight titles together with 4 straight final appearances, and then you kick Shaq out of LA, ship him to the Miami Heat, and then a new era is born in South Beach because they already had their young star Dwayne Wade, who was drafted in the 2003 NBA draft. You pair Dwayne Wade and Shaq together. A few years later, 2 seasons later, they went on to win their first. The two of them helped the Miami Heat win their first NBA title in 2006 when they defeated the Dallas Mavericks. But when you think about that trade is so significant because you already had Shaq play with Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest shooting guards of all time. Then you ship him out to Miami, and then he wins his 4th NBA title, his final NBA title, which went down as one of the greatest shooting guards of all time, in Dwayne Wade as well. So those 5 trades right there are so significant in North American sports history because they helped franchises become dynasties or win their first titles or get back to being at the top of the mountain in sports. But that Luka Doncic trade is still an unknown factor. But when we look back at this trade in the next 3 to 5 years, that could be one of the biggest in North American sports history. But I got to put that in the list because of how significant it was and changed the landscape of the NBA today. But those are my top 5 personal North American sports trades in North American sports history. That is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.